It's a sad day, Mark.
It is a sad day.
Val Kilmer has died.
Yeah, I mean, I woke up to it and I saw people tweeting about it kind of before the breaking news alerts had gone through, and I guess you kind of, when someone's been as ill as he has, I guess you probably know that something's going to be coming at some point soon, but yeah,
He's sort of like of our generation. I know he's probably one above. He was definitely an adult when I was watching him in Batman Forever when I was like 12. But I can't even remember how old I was, probably more 13, 14 actually. But he feels like he's sort of a movie star of our time, if that makes sense, like of our time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously Top Gun was the big breakthrough for him and will always be Iceman to so many people and played that role so well. I know that you have a very fondness. I've actually got a fondness for Batman Forever.
Yeah, it's a great film. It's got
I'm
its
not
moments.
sure that's correct.
It's got its moments, but it's Joel Schumacher doing Joel Schumacher, and take it for what it is. I liked his Batman. I liked his Bruce Wayne. I like the darkness about it. I like the brooding darkness. But also, I was a teenager looking at Val Kilmer playing Batman. He was my Batman. Like people have like their Doctor Who's and everything. Sylvester McCoy for me. My Batman is always going to be Val Kilmer because that was the time that I really got into it, and I had like the Batman Forever duvet and I had a Robin action figure, and really I was meant to be going after Chris O'Donnell because he was meant to be like of our age, but really I was mesmerised by Val Kilmer in the Batman role. But for me, his the role that, and it came out at the same time, it's like those mid-90s for me, the role that I always think about in terms of a great performance and a great character is Chris Hurlis from Heat. I know people focus, and quite rightly, on the De Niro Pacino in Heat, but actually if you look at the poster, and I had the poster on my wall, if you look at the poster, that blue poster, and you've got the Pacino and De Niro right in the centre with his big old gun, and I'm not into gun violence, but there's a scene in Heat where Val Kilmer as Chris Hurlis rolls and takes some people out to save his friend, who is a criminal. But he does that. He's in the centre with his big old gun. And I think that tells you all you need to know about that film, that he is there as this troubled, this complicated man, this person who has an affair but is loyal to his male mate. Like, it's so complicated. He's got a gambling problem. It's just him and what's her name? Who's the person who plays his wife in...
Is it Ashley Judd?
It is Ashley Judd. Thank you. See, I'm not showing off my Heat credentials. Just having a moment because I'm sad about Val. They play off each other so well, and such a great role for her. Anyway, I'm not going to go into a review on Heat because I will. But yeah, I'm sad for him. And it also reminds me of the days where we had a guinea pig called Val. Val the guinea pig.
Well, it was kind of Valentino.
Yes.
And we didn't name him. He came with that name.
No,
but, yeah.
But still, I did, at one point in time, I did really want to call one of the kids Valentine because I thought Val Kilmer's name, like his full name, was Valentine. And you told me that it wasn't, and I wouldn't believe you. I was like, no, it's like Val short for Valentine. And you brought up Wikipedia and you showed me and you were like, it's just Val, and it is just Val. So yeah, reminds me of those days. So many memories.
And because let's self-promote, one of our first ever episodes included us watching Top Secret together.
It did, yes. And loads of people have been talking about Top Secret being one of their favourite performances.
An absolute seminal Val Kilmer. His first ever role as well, where he's essentially, if you're not familiar with it, it's the same directors as Airplane, so that's and The Naked Gun, so that's the kind of humour, but it's kind of an Elvis.
It's like a take on one of those Elvis
movies where he goes into Germany to perform a concert. Actually, his singing in it, which is really good. We also covered Heat for Flixwatcher.
For Flixwatcher with Kobe and Helen. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of might be worth going along there. Some other films. I mean, the other film that really stands out for me is, I don't think you've seen this. Have you seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang?
No, I haven't, but lots of people have been talking about it, and it's made me want to go and watch it, just as like to watch Val in his prime, apparently.
We have it on Blu-ray, so if you ever
Oh, we
want
do?
it,
Yeah, it's in our cupboard. I
Yeah.
knew I'd seen it.
And that was the film that relaunched the career of Robert Downey Jr.
Yes.
Which made him, got him the role of Iron Man, which indirectly allowed him to sit in some director's chairs last week.
And also, just before we move on, the Val documentary, we covered that on the podcast as well. If you are interested in the life and times of Val Kilmer, particularly given the sad news, I'd really recommend going and watching that documentary. It was just a really interesting insight into Val as an artist, and also as a person who had lost the ability to speak through throat cancer. The idea of how do you communicate with your family, with your friends, and communicate your art without having that vocalization, which, given we have a child who's nonverbal, I didn't think about it at the time, but I was putting the washing away upstairs and I was thinking about what I was going to say on the pod today. And I thought, oh God, I wonder if that's why it resonated with me so much, that when you have a non-verbal family member and you're working to find ways in which they can communicate their needs and wants and their likes and everything about and their personality, that maybe that's why that documentary, given what was going on for him medically at the time, really spoke to me. So yeah, really recommend that. So yeah, sad times. Thanks, Val, for all the memories.
Hey, Mother Goose, how's it going? I'm doing good, Tom. This is Pete Mitchell, Tom Kazansky. Congratulations on Top Gun. Thank you. Sorry to hear about Cougar. He and I were like brothers in flight school. He was a good man. Still is a good man. Yeah, that's what I meant. Thought so. Say, you need any help? With what? You figured it out yet? What's that? Who's the best pilot? No, I think I can figure that one out on my own. I heard that about you. You like to work alone.
If we're doing movies first, can I talk about Flow?
Yes, you can. I'm glad you said flow, because I thought you were going to do it in your Hull accent and go
Fleur.
And I thought I'd have to cut in and go, now for everyone who isn't in, now would you call Hull, is it East Yorkshire? I have to get this right. I was just going to call it Yorkshire, and something in the back of my head said, I've known you for what, 12 years now? And
Yeah,
I
about that.
think it might be East Yorkshire.
It's
the East Riding.
Well done, the East Riding of Yorkshire.
Yes. Good.
Yeah, accent with elongated vowels.
Yeah.
So when I worked at Comet, we had an office in Hull, we had another office down in Watford, and people used to ring up and like from the Watford office and say, could you just say promo code? And yeah. Hilarity ensued. Curler.
Nice.
Fern curl.
What? Phone call.
Yes.
Phone call. Even like right. Yep. I'm getting there. I'm there. So you went to see a film called Flow.
Yeah, and you turned your nose up when I said what this was.
Well, I didn't know. I still can't remember what it is. Look, you tell everyone at home and me what it is.
So this is an animated film. It is a film about a cat that it's kind of we see evidence that humans exist in this world, but we never see a human in this. So we see it's about animals that live on this island, and we can see that there are buildings, there is art that has been made, but we see no evidence of humans. So it might be post-apocalyptic or something like that, but we never get that background. But one day, they live on this island, and there is a huge tidal wave, that kind of a biblical flood that takes over the entire island. And this cat goes on a boat with a capybara, a ringtail lemur, a secretary bird, and a golden retriever.
Love a secretary bird.
You rolled your eyes when I've just gone through that. Because I know that in your mind, what you are imagining is Madagascar.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
What I'll say is this film is complete. There's no spoken word in this altogether. It is completely silent, and the story is told through images on screen. This won the Academy Award for the Best Animated Feature, but it's also nominated for Best International Film as well. So that's the kind of credence that it's looking for. It's Latvia's first ever win. I think the first thing to talk about is the animation style, which, when I saw stills of this film, this got 5 stars in Empire, and when I saw the things, it looked like a cutscene from a mid-90s computer game.
Okay, I'm getting more into it now. that attracts me more than anything else. Okay.
So
a mid-90s computer, what you mean, like a RoboCop type thing, or where people press the button and someone like walks along.
no, like 3D animation, like in a computer game.
Not like Tetris or something like that.
No.
Okay.
No.
Oh, like Sonic the Hedgehog.
But again, that's not really 3D, is it? Well, I'm thinking like a cutscene from, say, Resident Evil or something like that.
Oh,
where
okay, right.
You can see kind of there's a finite number of colours involved with it, and so instead of like it being fully shaded, like you see grades of colour. So like if something is shaded, like it's a dark grey, and then there's a ring of slightly lighter grey and slightly lighter grey, and then a spot in the middle.
Yeah.
That is obviously intentional because the background of this is absolutely photorealistic, and the thing that they've got absolutely right on this is the light. The sunlight that comes through on this film is absolutely beautiful. We've said it before, but there's so many scenes in this where you could just put it on the wall as a print. I'm going to show you like a picture of the capybara and the. Do you see what I mean about how it's almost like low res, the colouring of the capybara?
I do, yeah. See, I don't know animation at all, but it reminds me of the style of maybe the Japanese animators. Am I getting that wrong?
It's not what
It's not what immediately comes to mind.
No, but you can see how like the capybara is low res. This is an amazing audio feature.
Obviously,
here we're doing
yeah.
here.
Everyone go and have a look at the
background
pictures.
is more sort of photorealistic.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, that they are very much animated, and the
Yes.
background is not to the extent. Yeah.
And basically they are just sailing along in this flooded land and going with the flow of the river. The storytelling on this is absolutely fantastic. There are no words, however, you know these characters and you know the differences in personality between this. In that, when you're walking along and you meet a golden retriever, you can tell one that's a little bit crazy and a little bit funny to play with, or one that's like a little bit down in the dumps and a little bit.
Aww.
Yeah. Sorry.
No one wants a sad golden retriever.
And this really got me emotionally, and it was. I think it's a really simple story of just animals trying to salvage some life and stuff like that. But there's some quite tough moments in it where things are in trouble and mild peril, as the BBFC would call it. A really interesting screening. This was showed in the Odeon near us, so like mainstream multiplex cinema. There were art house film watchers there who wanted to go see a 5-star Empire film, an Academy Award-winning film. Equally, there were families with 2 kids under 6. So one of these group of people enjoyed it more than the other, I will tell you. Although, I mean, it's an 85-minute film, so it doesn't stick around.
Yeah.
Kids went off to the bathroom a couple of times during that time, but this will be in my top 10 of the year, almost certainly. Robot Dreams was another film that was out last year that was an animated film. I think that was Spanish and no dialogue, and similarly told stories through visual storytelling rather than anything else. And it's a really good concept, and I really, really enjoy this growing sort of genre of modern day silent film. I'm so glad I went to see this at the cinema because A, the visuals are just perfect, but B, you have that concentration on the screen, and if it's at home, sometimes you are sort of tempted to reach for your phone, and you don't have the dialogue to rely upon there. But this is brilliant storytelling, and I'd recommend this to anyone who gets a chance to see it because it's a beautiful film.
Fab.
And contains a capybara.
Obviously. 5 stars capybara.
4.5 stars Fleur.
Secretary bird as well. And not a Dalmatian, a golden retriever?
Yes, and a ring-tailed lemur. And a cat. Watching television. Can we be the millionth people to talk about Adolescence?
Let's do it. What do we say about Adolescence other than it's one of the biggest shows on Netflix ever? Is it now, or
when we did my top 10 of the year, I kind of spoke about how Baby Reindeer kind of took over the entire culture of the UK and probably the wider world for kind of like a month last year. And it feels like this is going the same way.
Oh, totally. When you've got the Prime Minister standing up in the House of Commons saying, we are going to show this film I know it's 4 episodes, but we're going to show this show to teenagers in school. You're right. I know that sometimes politicians get involved in the culture in this, but this really does seem to have taken over all the discussions. It's on every podcast that I listen to. It's on all the news programs. It's really built this conversation around young men, masculinity, and also this idea of the one shot, which is what each of these episodes is. It's all one shot.
I'm to the end of my tether with one shots.
Yeah,
I think
I'm same.
The first came through that I can think of, like back to the popular culture through True Detective. There was one at the end of that. There was the 2 films with Chris Hemsworth that came out. Was it Extraction?
Yes,
which
we
used
watched
them,
that. Yeah,
quite prominently in that. And now it just feels like, oh, we'll put a one shot in for an action sequence just for a bit of fun.
And Stephen Graham, who's behind this and as it stars in it, he's known now for these one shots because he did a show called Boiling Point, which had a similar thing with his wife Hannah,
made by the same creator, Jack Thorne.
Yeah, so they've got this pedigree with it. I have to say that it put me off. I didn't want to watch it because I am sick of this device. And partway through episode 1, I thought about forwarding it. And I realised watching that first episode that I'm so used to edits and I need edits.
Yes.
to give my brain a pause. There are scenes in episode 1 involving a young lad who is being investigated by the police, and there are scenes in there that are very challenging as a parent, that you can imagine yourself, because you're put into Stephen Graham as a father's shoes. You can imagine yourself, how would you protect your child? How would you react in this? And I wanted there to be a cut. And I thought, am I gonna go on to episode 2? But of course I did. Then 3, then 4. By the time I got to episode 3, which is essentially a 2-parter between this young man and a psychologist, I found that was where I enjoyed the one shot more, where it was more like a piece of theatre and 2 actors were in one room, and it was I'm doing lots of things with my hands. It was the flow of where the camera was, and the flow of and I kind of forgot about the device, and I enjoyed that. It came back again in episode 4 for me, where I'm thinking, how are they getting it in front of a car? How are they getting it through a front door? Oh, we're over there now. I still have an issue, and it's my issue. I still have an issue that I'm analysing how they're doing it too much, and that takes me out of the show, albeit it's a superb show.
I love the idea that you thought long and hard about watching this, because this came out on the weekend that I was coming back from Las Vegas. Yeah. And by the time I came back, you're like, I've just watched it all.
I just watched it all. Yeah.
So you clearly didn't think that long or that hard about it.
No, but I had a hesitation. And I still have a hesitation now, even though, as I say, my takeaway from it, I mean, it's not like we're saying anything different to anyone else, and that's why I hesitate with this as well. But I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think it talks about things that we really need to talk about. I think the thing that really shocked me is there are people of our age or slightly older, of other parents, who were saying that they've never heard of the term incel, who don't understand the misogynistic content that's been put out by various people. I'm not going to mention their names because I don't want to give them any credit. That they're not aware of that world. Now, I know that we're not as down with the kids as, we could be. There are lots of things that I don't know that teenagers know, but I am aware of the general discourse around this. And I think when you are, we had an awful situation in our part of the world where a young lad stabbed and killed a young girl in a town not far from where we are. Stephen Graham mentions this in his in the interviews, that he said that it was happening where he was, and then he said, and it happened again. I think he's referring to that horrific crime. That, it's right on your doorstep, and it's happening. And it's the why, isn't it? Why is this happening with our young people, and what can we do to support young people as they navigate this really, really complicated world? So I think that's the wonder of this show is that it started those conversations, and people who don't know things are learning things, and hopefully that will help them to speak to and communicate with their children to hopefully stop these things from happening.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really aware of the content creators that you were referring to, because I keep away from it. I have a very carefully curated social media following. So, and if someone was posting stuff like that, I would probably just either mute them or remove them. I never go on the For You tab on social media. I just follow who I follow and do that. So when these people have been in the news, I've kind of not known who they are or what they are, and I've just never really sort of taken the time to sort of investigate their stuff, which I am so glad that these guys weren't around when I was young. Because I like to think that when I was growing up, I kind of knew right from wrong and would be able to sniff out their bullshit as being, manipulative bullshit.
Yeah.
But, as as someone who grew up not entirely popular with the ladies, I can see how this sort of stuff can play on the minds of young people. I mean, I've always had friends who are female and continue to. So I really hope that this would not touch my radar and wouldn't push a string. But it is easy to see, and there were people who were like that when I was growing up, 30 years ago, without the term incel and without the voice that they would now have on social media. I mean, we can talk about the performances. I mean, I've not had many people talk about Owen Cooper's performances. Have you?
What do you mean? What, his other performances?
No. His performances. I was joking about how everyone's lauding him on.
I cannot tell what your face means. Be nice to the autistic woman. Right, so that was sarcasm.
Owen Cooper.
You're saying that lots of people were enjoying his performance.
Yeah, first ever role.
He's amazing. I mean, he's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, to come up
one of those things where you
training.
worry that this is like he's gonna burst out of the doors like this, and then we're never going to see him again. So I really hope he's got some other roles lined up.
Taylor's oldest time, yes.
Young, especially for young actors.
Yeah, just hope he's got, and I think he will have people. I trust the makers of like Jack Thorne and Stephen Graham to be able to put an arm around him and just shelter him.
Thomas Turgus, who was on This Is England, he speaks very, very fondly about Stephen Graham, and also who's the guy who wrote This Is England? This Is My Day, where I don't remember any. But anyway, it's so famous, and I can't get everyone shouting at me. But he said that when he had complications in his family growing up, and they were
Shane Meadows.
Thank you, Shane Meadows. That they were looking to like adopt him and to and had cared for him all his life, and you just he's going to be fine. And I really like what I really like is that you get all of like the best people that Stephen Graham knows popping up in like just little like people. There's so many people from This Is England in this in each episode. So many of them, and it's like one of the teachers is the mam in This Is England. It's these little like his wife's in it, and all of that, and then she's the producer, and all of these things. I love that. It gives me a little sense of. I tell you who I really love though. It's Ashley. What's his?
Ashley Walters.
Thank you.
Ashley D.
Ashley. Yeah.
He's got 21 seconds to go.
He has. Was he in So Solid Crew?
Did you not know that?
No.
Let me just make sure that's right before.
No, that can't be right.
Ashley Anthony Walters, also known by his stage name Asher D, is a British actor and rapper. First rose to fame as a member of UK garage group So Solid Crew.
No.
Yeah. So I think he was in a film called Bullet Boy, which was the first thing I saw him in after So Solid Crew, and it was this sort of British gangster, sort of London culture sort of thing, and it was Mark Kermode who raved about it. It's a really, really good film and a really, really good like entrant for him. Then he joined the cast of Hustle.
Oh right, okay.
But he replaced Danny Blue on,
Danny Blue.
on Hustle. When is it Mark Warren who plays that?
Yeah,
He went off to, I think, go to America, and I think it was a very tough thing to take this.
Yes,
it's
very
different,
isn't it? Yeah.
Established TV show, and to put someone in from outside of it, it was tough for him, and I think he only stuck around for one series.
He is so good, though.
He's brilliant.
And I think, given any other show, he would be the one that everyone's talking about. But because all the performances are so good, it's really difficult, isn't it? You've got people talking about Erin Doherty in that episode 3. You've got the young lad. You've got Stephen Graham. You've got the mum. The daughter, I thought was really, really authentic. Just, there's so many. So you're like saying everyone is brilliant. But for me, I really liked it when he was on screen, and I looked forward to seeing him again. And I really liked the way that they took the storyline of fathers and sons and gave that to him as well with his own son. So yeah, I thought it was fabulous. I don't think I could watch it again. It's so emotionally draining. And it wasn't a happy watch in any way, shape or form. And it felt relentless at times. It really had that feeling of, wow, we are in it here. And because there's no edits, there's no, breath of like, oh, right, we're in a different scene, or we've stopped that now. So it's not one that I would revisit, but that's not to say that it isn't an incredibly powerful piece of telly.
I kind of forgot about the one-shot part of it. So I think there are sort of gaps in this. If I just found them, because it's not the main character on screen all the time. It will follow someone through a corridor, follow I was going to say NPC, but it's not an NPC. But yeah, it's kind of someone who's not integral to the plot. It'll follow it down the corridor to go to another room, and I found that as good as an edit as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, I think because I'm analysing it, and that's because I can't turn my brain off, I'm now going, so we're following this school pupil down a corridor so that actor can step off screen now, because they're going to need a break before they go downstairs and come out, and then we're going to meet them again downstairs. That my brain can't switch off for those things.
I never had that thing, and I came to this late because, like I say, I was in Las Vegas and came back, and it was kind of when I was waiting at the airport to get my flight back to Newcastle, everyone was just blowing up on like everywhere I looked on social media or on like news websites about this show. And pretty soon it came through, almost through like football accounts that I followed, like talking about it and talking about the shot at the end of episode 2 that I'm not sure whether I'd have even clicked on to the technical mastery of it had I not seen the shot at the end of episode 2, and this is how they did it. Here's a link to the video. Mm-hmm. Because I was just ingrained in the storytelling and the progression of the plot, and I can pay this no higher compliment. Mm-hmm. But yeah, what a show! If you haven't seen it, if you're the one person on earth who hasn't seen it and you have a Netflix account, please just I would say watch it, but be warned, it is tough at points.
It is tough, yeah. But it's meant to be.
It's meant to be, and it's a necessarily tough. Jack Thorne. Everyone comes out and says, "Oh, this is the new show by Jack Thorne."
Yeah,
and that wasn't a name that I was necessarily familiar with.
Right. So Jack Thorne has written a lot about disability.
Okay.
So Jack Thorne was behind the show that I talked about, I think it was a couple of years ago, which was about a family whose child was disabled, and they were having to make the decision as to whether to withdraw life support or not. I cannot remember the name of the show. It had Michael Sheen in as the father. And why have I not... sorry, everyone. Names
Best
today.
Interests.
Thank you. Best Interests. But Sharon Horgan played the mother. He's done a lot around, and I know he's spoken a lot about disability within the television industry as well. So that's how he came on my radar. He did one of the talks, there's like a McTaggart lecture or something like that. I think that might actually be it. And he spoke about inclusivity in the TV industry, but specifically talking about disability, because he said, and I hope I've got this right, but he said that he had been disabled in the past, and he didn't at that time classify himself as disabled or identify himself as disabled, but I know he has also had a late in life, and probably subsequent to that, autism diagnosis as well.
Okay.
So he's got a lot going on. I think he's been on Desert Island Discs or shows of that ilk talking about
I remember
his
hearing
writing.
that someone heard him talk, I think on Desert Island Discs, and wrote to him to say, I
Yes.
believe you have an autism.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's an autism spectrum. So yeah, I think that's why he's on my radar. A, because of the autism. B, because of the disability. And C, because the shows that he writes in the main. I don't think I'll have seen everything, but the shows that he writes are shows that really speak to me on a cultural level.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I've really seen by him was, well, embarrassingly, Enola Holmes.
Okay.
But do you remember when we watched National Treasure together?
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
the Nick Cage.
Not the Nick Cage.
Yeah.
The other one.
That was quite early in our relationship.
That was quite
I
a
think.
powerful thing to
Yeah.
watch as well. Yeah.
Yeah, the Robbie
Again.
Coltrane. Was it Robbie Coltrane?
It was Robbie Coltrane,
Yeah.
and it was essentially a historic abuse.
Yes.
A show looking at historic abuse by a one of a duo of
Yeah.
like with the comedians or something like that. Can't remember now. Or
Yeah,
or
I mean,
actors.
I was about to name other
Yeah,
comedians that could
no, I
possibly
know,
be, which is
I
not
know.
necessarily. But yes.
But yeah, and that was again very powerful with some amazing performances as well.
Good day, refiners.
So it was something a little bit different from what we normally do. We've just come out of 10 weeks of an instant reaction podcast for Severance Series 2. It's always a mouthful when I try to explain this, but every Friday for 10 weeks, we sat down and spoke about the Severance episode that had just been released.
After the break room.
Yes, that's what we called it. We called it After the Break Room. So if you go back through your, what do you call them? I want to say subscription portal, and that is completely the wrong thing.
Podcast feed.
Thank you. The podcast feed, if you have a look at podcast feed, you'll see all of our After the Break Room episodes, all 10 of them sitting there. And it's been an interesting ride, hasn't it, to do that every week?
Yeah. I mean, are we going to touch upon our spoiler-free thoughts for people who haven't necessarily dived into this yet?
Yes, Mark, that's what we agreed to do.
I'm just gonna. This is my last episode on the podcast, if that's the case. So, if you haven't seen Severance at all, I think it's my favourite show on TV. I would say it is a show that you should go out your way to watch, and it's worth the. I don't know how much Apple TV Plus is now, but it's probably like $7.99.
Is it bad that we don't know how much it is?
No, because I think they are designed to be passive. These prices.
Okay, I'll take that.
And if you can, a guy at work polished off the first season in an afternoon, which might be a little too far. I think these shows deserve some space to breathe in between the episodes. But if you can watch these within a month, which you can, $7.99 I think is a bargain for two amazing series of TV. Now, having said that, I don't think I enjoyed season 2 as much as I enjoyed season 1. I think season 1 has the oh my god moments, certainly towards the back end of the season. And I genuinely think that this season lacked those moments for me, but also and we've discussed this on the instant reactions, I think my enjoyment of it is affected by me constantly thinking, what do I think of this at the minute?
Yeah.
I can't just let the show wash over me, because I know that the second this finishes, I need to go and actually talk about it with my wife for half an hour.
Whereas if we were just doing what we're doing now, which is we've watched season 2 of Severance, you wouldn't have been thinking about every single beat in each episode and what you liked and what you disliked, and you might have said, well, there were a couple of episodes that didn't quite work for me, but you wouldn't have that intensive reaction to things.
And there are episodes that didn't work for me. There are episodes that I felt took away from the pacing of the drama, but the 4 characters on this show are absolutely fantastic, the 4 main characters. And then I think there is another character that has absolutely been pushed to the forward. He was kind of a background character in Mr. Milchek in the first season. He is definitely becoming sort of the 5th of the 4 characters, if that makes sense. And certainly the narrative is more drawn around him, and I'm more interested to see where he would go in any future seasons.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. I think the pacing, if I look at it as a whole, spoiler free, the pacing was off for me in series 2. Series 1, I didn't feel like that at all, and especially because we did a rewatch of it as well. It wasn't something that came up in the rewatch. Series 2, and I think I said this to you the other day as well, it kind of blew up too much, I think, and we not helping because we decided to follow on and do an instant reaction podcast and add even more into, you know, what people were saying. But I think that it is on the precipice of becoming so big that you can't get away from it. And I found that some of the episodes of the official podcast that was put out with Ben Stiller and Adam Scott, I moved away from it towards the end because it sort of felt like when there's a really someone really has realised somebody likes you and then they like double down on it and they're going, but yeah, like us more, here's some more information, here's some more, and it just got a bit, I just felt like I knew too much about behind the scenes and all of that.
Okay.
I'm not describing it very well, but
I kind of get what you mean.
Do you know what I mean? Like when they started doing things in the middle of London and balloons everywhere and Mr. Milchek coming out with a band and, you know, all these things that were sort of referencing the show. It kind of, I'm trying not to say jump the shark, but that's essentially it's just sometimes a show blows up, and that's great because it's a brilliant show and I love the show, but you start to know more about the people behind it and more about and like, I don't want to see the actors that much.
Yeah.
I just want to enjoy the show.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. I would dispute one point on this. I don't think this show has blown up anywhere near as much as you think.
I think.
Right?
Right?
I think we are in a bubble, and we are in a bubble of people who listen to 4 or 5 different movie and TV and pop culture podcasts a week. And I think
probably
everyone
more.
is covering this.
Yeah.
In that sector.
And it's my fault for going and looking for the official podcast and listening to it. Yeah, so I completely get it. Yeah.
As I speak to people at work about this, they're like, "What's Severance?" No, I've not heard anything.
Right, okay, yeah, it's a bubble.
And
it's a bubble.
I have friends at work who didn't know anything about it, so I was explaining to it what it is. And yeah, like they watched one episode and finished the entire the first series in an afternoon. But that's I don't think it's got into the pop culture as much as Adolescence, which is being talked about in the House of Commons.
Yeah.
I think this is
niche.
This is a cult TV show. This is sometimes cult TV shows can be mainstream, like as we mentioned on virtually every single reaction.
Yeah, go on.
Lost.
Yeah,
and that is part of the pop culture. I think this is part of a subculture.
Right.
But
that makes me feel better.
Yeah. I mean, but that's still me. I mean, I haven't listened to any podcasts other than our own, and also the Cinemile, because I think they went into this the same way that we did. They did instant reactions. I don't think they were doing massive amounts of research after an episode. And I enjoy listening to Kathy and Dave. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Dave, if you're listening. I enjoy listening to their thoughts on the show. When I look at other podcasts that we listen to and their coverage, it's 2.5 hours long.
I was about to say it's 2.5 hours.
I mean, when your episode is like 3 times as long as the episode itself that it's discussing, what are you going into there? I don't want to look into the far end of a fart about what was written in the back wall of something. I'm just happy letting my own mind go over this. And when we were watching Lost, I used to go over every single small podcast, and I would be every day in between Lost was a day when I would listen to Lost theories and stuff like that. And that really affected me, like my enjoyment of the later series, because someone's come up with every single theory. So
so
I
there's
prefer to be
nothing left
surprised.
for you to be surprised for. Yeah. Having said that, to go back to our review of this series, I was surprised by the turns that it took. I didn't feel that I had been spoiled by theories, and I do listen to all the 2.5 hour podcasts. I didn't feel that my enjoyment of it was spoiled for having people analyze it to death. But that's me. You for everyone at home, Mark has put his head against the sofa. He's staring up at the ceiling, and he's got a big frown on.
The other thing is, I think a lot of the reveals and things that were built up of this series were understated, and I felt undernourished at the end of that.
Yeah.
We have a couple of bits of correspondence on this that vehemently disagree with that, or not vehemently disagree, but offer an alternate view on that, and that's fine. I'm really glad that people did well on it, and it's possibly the fact that, again, I'm trying to think about what do I think about this? What is XX? But every single moment in the first series where there was a big reveal absolutely hit home, absolute home run, and I was delighted with what happened on that. There are reveals in this series which just aren't the case.
Okay. As you brought up our correspondence, I think it's time to go into spoilers and have a chat about what people have been sending us, because we said on the final episode of our instant reaction podcast, we said tell us what you think, send in some messages, and we have had some fabulous messages. So Mark is my special assistant, and he's got his tablet up with all the emails on. So we're going to talk specifically about two that we received from Neil W and Neil J.
Yeah, Neil W, the first person to ever write into our email address. So
thank you, Neil.
So I was so excited until I realised I hadn't set up the email address right, and I had to spend about half an hour at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night when you were away.
I was in Wales.
Setting it up so I could actually reply to him to say thanks.
We've had it for years. We've never done anything with it.
I think we messed up, revealing what the email address was.
Oh, totally, yeah. Totally.
And so he
Sounds
sent
like
an email saying, I'm just checking I can actually email this email
Which
address.
is very kind.
Yes.
Thank you, Neil.
And I suddenly realised that I couldn't reply saying yes.
So before we go into this is now, we're going into spoiler territory. We're going to be talking about all the bits and pieces that Mark has just gone X and X in a special code. So we're going to go well into spoilers. So if you haven't seen any of Severance, please come back later on when you have.
So Neil W writes, overall, he was really happy with the finale. He's excited to see where it goes in season 3, while at the same time could be happy if it ended here. Personally, he thinks they answered enough questions and didn't bring up any crazy new questions that we have to think about. There's probably a few things he could critique, but the show's so good that he's willing to overlook things here and there. So just to address that, I think that's a really, really excellent point. I don't feel there's many questions left to answer.
Yes, I agree. And I totally agree with the idea of you could just leave it here. In fact, there's part of me that wishes I don't really want more. I just want that final shot of them running into the distance. I think whatever they give me, I might be disappointed with. So I totally agree with that.
Aaron and Paul entering Westworld is looming, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. And I know we talked about Westworld a lot on the instant reaction, but it's because it's there, because that happened, and it was such a disappointment. We were the people who would get up at stupid o'clock in the morning to watch Westworld before we went to work, and I worry that we're going there again. It is the example that we go back to.
Neil goes on, as far as Cold Harbour goes, he doesn't think that it being the 25th file is important. What is important is that it was the final step in the process, and that the Gemma project is 100% finished. It was built up as being the greatest thing to ever happened, but keep in mind where it's coming from. It's the greatest thing to happen according to a few crazy cult leaders.
It's a point.
Yeah, I mean... yeah, okay, well, I'll cut back. So them, it's a big deal. Neil's not sure how they were planning to market the new Severance technology, but refining the data and creating and testing these different versions of Gemma was important to them. doesn't mean it's important to us as the viewer. The barrier held for what they considered to be the most traumatic thing in her life, which is taking the crow apart, symbolising the end of trying for a baby and the beginning of a relationship with Mark unravelling. As a viewer, Neil thought Cold Harbour was more important and part of the timeline than it actually was. When Cold Harbour was completed, it would mark the beginning of the end for Gemma and probably all the other enemies in MDR. I think that's a really, really good point. What I would argue as a counterpoint is Cold Harbour has been this constant word that's come up all the way through the series, to the point where when I'm chatting to my friends at work, I'm saying, what do you think Cold Harbour is? What do you think it's building up to be? The fact that it's then important to some cult leaders and not to the audience as such or anyone else apart from them, to me, that's a disappointment in the storytelling. And that kind of goes with some of the things that I'm cooler on as part of the series. Now, this may go on to be explained further in season 3 as to why this is the most momentous thing in the history of mankind. But you've kind of already given me a sneak peek, and I'm not as excited as I expected to be. And that's it. It's managing expectations, and I was down when they opened up a door, and it was just that.
I think you're totally right. I think it's the Drummond line where he's saying to Milchek, you've got to get this done, Milchek, because you're going to be in charge of Severance, of the Severed Floor, at the greatest point in our history, and this is going to change the world. I know those aren't the exact words, but that's what we're left with as an audience, of this real build-up of, you're going to be in charge. There's the mural, there's the marching band. Everyone is, this is history making. And I understand what Neil's saying. It's a 25th file. They've maybe never got there before. I think we're led to believe that there have been many other people who've been testing subjects that have had a goat put in with them, of an even, because that's what Gwendolyn Christie, thank you. I thought I had it. That's what, when she comes along, is how many more? It made me think, how many times have they done this? And Gemma's been the last person to hold until 25, so I totally get what Neil's saying. But I too am disappointed by this being the revelation, but only because, as you say, it was built up so much. If they just said something like, we've never got to 25 rooms before, if it was that line, rather than it's going to be when the world finds out about this.
You talk about the goats as well, and that was something, why the goats there, why the goats there, why the goats there? Oh, it was for sacrifice. That again for me was a disappointment and something where I was under the expectations in the finale. So that was why I was a little bit flatter on the finale than most people. And I think that is something that absolutely aside from me doing the podcast, because I think that would have been a disappointment whether I was watching normally or not.
Well, thanks, Neil, for kicking us off, because that has been amazing. Your email was so thoughtful, and it made our day when it came through. So thank you very much, and great to have that as sort of opportunity to unpack all of those thoughts as well. Yeah.
So Neil J also wrote, now, I know Neil J personally, I will say this, and that's why I can criticise him for sending this through as a voice-to-text note, which means I've had to disassemble some real problems.
Is that what? A voice-to-text note?
Yeah,
What's
so
that?
He dictated it into his phone while he was driving, I think.
Did he?
Yeah, I think he was
Wow,
probably listening
Neil.
to our podcast and then dictated it into his phone.
I didn't even know that was a possibility. So it's not like a voice note, when people send you those really long voice
Oh, no,
notes?
that would have worked. That would have
Okay,
worked.
right.
I've had to add some grammar in here and there, and I might just...
Lots of full stops.
If I trail off at certain points, that might be why.
Fair enough. Right. What does Neil J say?
I mean, I sent you a voice-to-text note today on the way home.
Did
from
you?
The,
when you were in the
yeah,
car?
and it really
I
annoyed me
understand
that I said I'd left next, but the
It didn't give a
card
capital
didn't
N.
capitalise N.
Oh, terrible. What's Neil J said?
So Neil J, similar thing. He said he's willing to give Cold Harbour a bit longer to pay off. He doesn't think it's as simple as the cop being dismantled. Didn't he make a comment around the lack of emotional response while she was dismantling the cot? So I went back and watched the scene.
Right.
So what happens is, and there's the doctor and there is Jim watching.
Jim, yeah.
So the doctor says, enter the room. Who are you? Gemma says, I don't know. The doctor says, take it apart. The barrier is holding. She feels nothing. It's beautiful.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not the fact that it's not the fact it's caught in there. It's the fact that I was expecting something that would be a bigger reveal. And I don't know what I wanted to see in there, but it wasn't that. And yeah, that's probably the expectations on my part. But yeah,
I find it really interesting that two people have come back with this same point.
Yeah. I'm more than happy to say that I'm in the minority on this as well.
It's great to have like this opposing view, because you and I were very similar with it.
Neil adds, could this not be the point of Cold Harbour being something a little bit more exciting to do with the emotions, personality, or soul?
What?
I think this is Neil's dictation.
Neil, your dictation, mate.
And then he says, think back to Bert's conversation with his husband around the religious man telling them that the inner soul is a separate soul to the outer soul. So it could be looking into the very what a soul is. And I don't find that stuff as interesting as I think the show wants me to.
I find it interesting. As I said in that episode, I'm really into that.
There is a hell of a lot of lore that they're putting into this that I don't care about.
I think the introduction of religion into this series was really interesting, and I'd like them to take that further. I mean, what do religious...
I'd have loved them to do a bit more with it. But
wouldn't you love to see sort of outside religious institutions and what they think about this particular procedure and how they're... Because we know that there are like groups of people that are really anti it, but we also know that they're looking... There's like a... wasn't there a politician involved in it and stuff like that? But we haven't seen it from a religious point of view.
So I think there's a really interesting story that could be told in the background to this. My fear is that these are being pushed to the front, and the thing that I am here for is the relationships between the four and the people around them. And I feel that might be pushed to the side while we go further into what the religious people, what the religious institutions think of Severance and stuff like that. And the second we get an episode of just the religious and what they think of it, which I don't think is out the question that they would do a special episode about that, I will be coming on an episode very grumpy. Because I'm
nothing new there. Then
consistently, I'm here for the relationship between the four and their innie and outie relationships. I'm more than happy to add a bit of colour and a bit of flavour to it with showing what the outside world thinks of the severance procedure, but it's not what I'm here for primarily. It's a nice subplot to me. Neil also said he thought it was obvious that the Irv storyline was done last episode, for now at least, so he doesn't think it matters, didn't see them in this episode. So, full confession here. I completely forgot that Irv went away on a train.
Oh, yes.
This is what happens when you watch a show in Las Vegas at 5 o'clock in the morning after being down down Fremont Street the night before.
Do you remember recording that episode?
I've seen photo evidence of it. I know I was drinking Barocca while we did it. But yeah. So, yeah, okay, this is maybe not an ideal time for recording a podcast and coming back to bite me. But this is the perils of doing instant reaction rather than actually doing some research on your own. I nearly cut that bit out of the podcast because I edited that podcast. And I was but I thought, no, I'm going to be honest with you.
Just keep going.
To be honest, yeah. And Neil finishes with, and because it's a mystery box TV show, you just have to take Helly having the directions at face value. She has a mysterious set of directions, so naturally it's going to be useful. And when somebody has a mysterious job to do, it just happens that with these things, right?
So Neil says, stop thinking about it too much.
And that might
Fair
be
enough.
Yeah, I fully admit that.
Left, right. Get there in the end.
It felt a little bit too convenient of, oh, look, I've got this. Again, yeah, possibly so. Possibly I'm looking a little bit too hard on that.
Well, I did say to you, shall we sit down every week and pull this show apart? Which you very generously said, yes, okay, let's do it. And you were brilliant at being there at stupid o'clock in the morning in Vegas, which I was very grateful for. So, yeah. It's me that's made you into this being of like, should we do weekly? And should we do it even though we're going on holiday separately to different places and different countries? So yeah, thank you for that.
But seriously, guys, thanks for getting in touch. It's awesome that we've had this. So yeah.
So what is next, Mr. Gregson?
We've got a couple of things lined up. we are watching something at the minute with a view to doing a retro rewatch podcast on something.
Very excited about this. Can we not just say what it is?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I don't think it's a massive secret.
We are currently rewatching The Chronicles of Narnia.
We are watching the 1980s/1990s BBC TV series, The Chronicles of Narnia, which I have had on DVD for many, many years. I think you bought me it on DVD.
That would make sense.
Yes,
yeah.
that does
sounds
make
like
sense.
something I would buy.
You've bought me like the Ram the Twist there. You've bought me the Vicar of Dibley. So yeah, I absolutely adored this series when I was a kid. I remember distinctly sitting in front of my grandma's TV on a Sunday night watching it, and obviously it was those days when you didn't have streaming, where you I think we probably still had a VHS player, and you're watching it week to week, and I had to buy magazines.
I think we still had a VHS player. It was 1988.
Yes.
You didn't get DVDs at that time.
No, but you know what I mean. I'm just trying to paint a picture. Anyway, I loved it. I've always loved it, and I went to Wales recently, and I made lots of references to Narnia because it looked like Narnia, in the sort of the hills of Snowdonia. And I came back, and I was saying to Mark, I'd really like to just go back to that TV show and watch it, and Mark very kindly said that he wouldn't mind if I stuck some episodes on, and they're half an hour each. And what are we up to? Episode 5 now?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so we're watching almost 2 episodes a night. There was one night where we just did one, didn't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, 2 episodes a night back to back because we're really into it. So we're going to come back, and we're going to do separate episodes for each of the series. So we'll do one for The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, the one for Prince Caspian and the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and the one for my personal favourite, The Silver Chair. Very exciting. Let's see how many listeners we get for that. Mark's just like, no one will want to listen to this. I'm like, I've had so many messages from people when I said I was going to start watching this. So yeah, thank you, those people.
The only reason I'm doing this is because I can reciprocate by asking you to watch a TV show with me that I've been urging to get you to watch for ages.
I know.
Equally, a child watching thing that I love. So,
so this might be our new thing, because we're now Severance is over. We need something to sort of put on and watch together. So yeah, we might be going into sort of retro mode over these next few months. But we will be back.
We'll be back talking about films and TV that we've been watching that are modern as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to the usual. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.